want to welcome everybody to the Friday edition of the Daily Cheat Sheet. One of these days, we will offer a bonus episode of what we talk about before the shows, although I'm not sure. It's interesting to us. Golan, let's get right to it. There's a lot going on. The greatest thing in the world is Trump's view on the world and his lack of giving a crap about what he says in the slightest. And Macron yesterday called, as we brought up yesterday, for there to be a Palestinian state. Not a two-state solution, but a Palestinian state, and he's going to go in front of the UN. And Trump said on Macron, here's the good news. What he says doesn't matter. His statement doesn't carry any weight. Brutal, blunt, and brilliant.
I loved just reading the statement. I laughed out loud. The quote is, here's the good news. I can't help myself. Here's the good news. What he says doesn't matter. His statement doesn't carry any weight. Very good guy, but no weight. I thought that was pretty spectacular. I also loved, so Trump did his version of it, which is just dismissive. Marco Rubio followed that up like Scottie Pippen to Trump's Michael Jordan, and basically said, this is ridiculous. It's reckless. It's a slap in the face to October 7 victims. He said all the things that we needed to say with gravitas once Trump made it clear that nobody gave a crap what Macron has to say. He's in the middle of a lawsuit with Candace Owens. The guy is a joke from top to bottom.
His wife is a joke from top to bottom, according to Candace Owens.
According to Candace Owens. Very good. The only thing that I'm worried about is that Macron's move is going to start other people, because he's the first of the G7 powers to say something like this. As we mentioned on yesterday's show, after billions of dollars coming in from Qatar, after billions of dollars being invested in their major businesses, they just bought $6 billion worth of real estate in France, and on and on and on. So I'm sure it's all just, again, out of the goodness of their heart. But despite the fact that he's allegedly clearly paid off in order to do this, I'm worried that other people are going to follow in his footsteps, pushing other people in Europe to follow. The practical impact on the ground, Trump is right, is minimal, because it's true. What he says doesn't matter. But if the U.S. becomes isolated amongst even the P5 nations that don't support it, it's going to be harder and harder for Israel to keep fighting this uphill battle.
What's going on with French politics? Marine Le Pen was making some gains, and then somehow Macron held on to power. Is that still the case?
Yeah, but you understand the parliamentary system, right? It's the same way in Israel as anywhere else. Is that Macron was able to get the smaller groups and retain power and make deals with many devils.
How long is he going to remain in office?
They could call snap elections like in any parliamentary system, but I believe his term will last quite a bit longer, sadly.
Don't forget that with Marine Le Pen, she had the conviction that happened in 2025, the embezzlement conviction. And it was a 4-year sentence, but she got banned from holding public office. So when that happened, it also shifted things. So Macron remained president. I think he is staying in office until May 2027. And then I think he cannot run again.
It seems like France cannot be saved. Can't be saved from themselves. I mean, if they continue down this path, with them just offering citizenship to every resident of Gaza, and their stance increasingly pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism, and anti-French, anti-Western, it seems like they're just going down a slippery path. And it seemed like the only one who could save them was someone like Marine Le Pen, and somehow they outmaneuvered her. So it's really sad to see what's happening. I love what Marco Rubio said, but I love even more what Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, said. He said that the French can carve out a little piece of the French Riviera, and there could be the Palestinian state. There already is a Palestinian state. It's called Jordan. Why are we still talking about this?
Well said, both of you. Go on, moving on to the next point. After Witkoff walked away from the deal yesterday, because as we brought up, Hamas is insane. Whatever they brought to the table, we don't know. But today Trump said Hamas wants to die instead of making a deal. Israel must eliminate Hamas. U.S. President Donald Trump declared that Hamas sabotaged the Hostage deal and that Israel must now fight and clear the area. Finance Minister Smotrich added from Israel, the humiliating negotiations are over. Now is the time for victory. Thank God. And to Men's point, always they tried diplomacy, but it's just done. No more diplomacy go on. cut to it.
I mean, once, Dahmer has killed and eaten enough people, maybe we don't give him an additional menu. I think that maybe diplomacy should have been over a little while ago. But thank God for whether you agree with me or disagree with me, we're finally at the point where someone had the balls to say it. And of course, it was going to be Trump. Hamas doesn't want peace. They want martyrdom. By the way, they've been telling us that since the beginning. So it's not like we should all be shocked. They've never been a negotiating partner. They've always been a death cult. And you cannot cut a deal with someone whose goal is to die and kill all their own children while killing civilians and trying to kill you. It's just, what are we even talking about? It's like the person in the bullpen or in the during bullfighting trying to negotiate with the bull. Israel has been at the table over and over and over again, deal after deal, bending over backwards. Some of the deals that they have agreed to are stupid, but they want to save the hostages, and they do. They want to end this too. They want to end this, though, with Israel being safe enough to live in without everyone cowering every 5 seconds because Hamas is going to lob more rockets in or do another October 7th, as they have promised to do over and over again. Hamas, since day one of these negotiations, has been moving the goalposts, rejecting every ceasefire like it's a game. Of course, they do it in their fun, cute way where they don't reject it. They say, we're into what you're saying, but now we're going to throw in 7 things that are impossible or that we know you'll never agree to, so the press can write up how we tried to do peace and then you rejected our offer. Bottom line is, you don't negotiate with genocidal maniacs. Trump gets it. Let's fucking go.
Man, before I forget, I just want you to explain to people something. We're in this massive mess because of the prisoner exchange program and because Yahya Sinwar and all the top Hamas people were in prison, and what was it, 1,200 swap at that time for sadly dead soldiers.
And one alive.
And
one alive too, Gilad Shalit. Yeah. So what the Israelis understand and what the West does not understand is that we've been down this road. They traded over 1,000 prisoners, including the architect of October 7th, Yahya Sinwar, for a kidnapped Israeli soldier named Gilad Shalit. And what happened was you saved one life and you sacrificed 1,200. So the Israelis are pretty much over that. They don't want to do that anymore. They do want to bring back every last hostage. But at the same time, they know that negotiating with Hamas today means more death and destruction tomorrow. And then say what you want about Trump. The guy is consistent with trade, with Iran, with Hamas. He tries negotiating first. He's trying the diplomatic route, which is something that everyone who hates him, all of his detractors, will never give him credit for. But this guy is consistent that he says, let's first sit down. Even with the most terrible and insincere actors like Iran and Hamas, he goes, let's sit down. Let's try to work this out. Then when they don't, he hits them hard. So we're at the phase now, finally, where he's saying, look, I've tried. I've exhausted all the diplomatic efforts. This is day 61 of our negotiating with Iran. This is day 61 negotiating with Hamas. Go in there, finish them, crush them. The same thing is with the trade war. We're coming close to the end of that. And it's the exact same thing. He gave people time. We had a massive trade deal with Japan signed, what was that, yesterday or 2 days ago? Hopefully everybody else comes to the table and signs these trade deals, because if they don't, the guy is consistent. He's going to hit you with that big stick.
Usually I don't do that. No, I have nothing to say.
Fantastic.
Perfectly said, man. Great job. No, you're 100% accurate. And go on. This is the thing about Trump that men brought up, is that he's not into games. He's a very transactional person. He always has been. It's something most don't understand about him. But if you don't pay up, this is what will happen to you. If NATO doesn't pay up.
I think that's exactly right. I think that we have seen that now with Iran. We're going to be seeing that, I think, soon with China and with Russia, and now with what's happening here, what you said with NATO, absolutely. And this is a really good example, actually, of, as much as I wish we had started this process of saying enough is enough a while ago, he came into office, this was already in progress, and he had to start his version of it. And his version of it is, as funny as it is, because everyone in the press loves to say otherwise, his version of it is actually diplomacy. He basically comes in and says, let's in earnest have a conversation. I may not have liked Witkoff in this particular position, and I don't think he understood exactly how to go about doing his job. But if it had been the most brilliant negotiator in the history of the world, and he would have been a guy who had done it 20 times in a row, it still wouldn't have mattered, because from Hamas's side, this wasn't about diplomacy. It was about hostage theater. And this idea that Trump is saying, let's finish the job, means that he finally, whether he recognizes it now or he always has and was just waiting to be able to say it, the last 10 to 20 hostages were always going to be the hardest, because Hamas was never serious about making a deal.
Which is exactly what Trump said. Yeah.
It's exactly right. Hamas was never serious about making a deal. Hamas was never going to give up their leverage. That's literally, they know that what happened with Gilad Shalit may not be loved amongst the Israelis, but they also know that there are enough Israelis. And we are a good-hearted people that don't want to give up on our own. And they know, though, that using hostages as trading pawns, they're not holding hostages. They're harvesting hostages. It's part of their business model. They know this is how it's going to work. So every time we treat hostage swaps like diplomacy, they treat it like inventory management. And they were doing it again here. And Trump said, enough's enough. You're not serious about this. And he even hinted at targeted killings, which I'm a big fan of when it comes to this. He said, enough is enough. Let's go in, finish the job, do it large scale, do it small scale, do it in any way that is necessary. But let's wrap this thing up, because we're not doing it via diplomacy anymore.
All that said, there is a quick answer to this. Trump could tell Qatar, get the hostages out. I don't care what you need to do. You have your little cronies, your little Hamas guys. They need to release every single last one of these hostages today. Otherwise, we are going to remove our army base from your land. We're going to strip away protections that we've provided for you. I mean, there's so many leverage points that we have over Qatar, and he's not employing that. That's my only criticism of the guy, is that there is a pathway to get this done, and it's straight through Qatar and Turkey, but he's not leveraging that. What he's going to do is he's going to allow Israel to go in and smash a lot more of Gaza. Fine, if that's what it takes, but I would prefer it the other way.
Although I think, you know how we talked about in the past that sometimes he's doing one thing, like bombing Iran and giving them 60 days, and on 61 he bombs them, and it's like, it wasn't really about Iran, it was about telling Russia not to screw around, like his side messages. I feel like this may be another one of those. When Trump says Hamas is going to be hunted down, it doesn't matter where they are. You're going to
That's exactly what I was thinking too.
I think it's not a message to Israel or the world. I think it's a warning shot to Doha. I think it's
Qatar. I think you're exactly right. I think it's a warning shot to the Hamas people that are living lavishly still in Qatar, saying, batter up. Okay, let's move on, though. President Trump came out today and he said that, sadly, Obama does fall under probably the presidential immunity via the Supreme Court. I don't think they were ever going to get Obama. I think that was always out of reach. But we see people like Clapper and Brennan and all these people now lawyering up, and it's a fun sight to see these people squirming.
As much as I would have loved to see Obama in jail over that treasonous act that he did allegedly with the Russiagate scandal, he's not top of the food chain. It would be great to see all of the CIA people. And here's the deal, is that this is more of a message to anyone who would be thinking about doing something like this in the future. And they need to know that they're going to be held accountable, even if their boss is not. So if the president is not held accountable, but he's going to ask you to do something that you're going to be held accountable for, you might think twice. And that is the crux of why this needs to be done. They need to go after these people, and I hope they do. Listen, we've heard a lot of nonsense over the past, say, 8 years over the Kraken, and it's all going to drop, and Giuliani saying he's got all the evidence, and it all turned out to be giant smoke show with nothing going on there. I hope this is not one of them. I hope that they're actually able to take action on this and not just do press conferences where they say this was done and then no one gets held accountable. And then the media runs with it that it was a giant nothing burger or a nothing story and it was nothing there to begin with and it was just right-wing propaganda, which is what they're trying to say already. And I am all for the rule of law. And if no matter which side does that type of stuff, you go after them. And in this case, they need to go after these guys.
I just need to correct Mend on something, and I need to correct a lot of people on something. It wasn't Trump that said release the Kraken. There were a bunch of people like Sidney Powell, that former lawyer who is, I believe, is now disbarred, who actually did some great work. There were quite a few people, on Giuliani, of course, that were on the side, on the crazy Lindell, on this crazy side rail of stuff. Trump's whole thing was always going to the courts, saying, looking at the vote count and getting all that stuff done. And people always love to say, Golan, that the courts overturned everything, or they ruled on everything. The reality is almost every court rejected to even hear the cases. That was the atrocity of what happened at that time. It wasn't everything else, which Mend is 100% right, which was a smokescreen. And I kept on saying to people, focus on the prize. Focus on the fact that he won 18 bellwether counties. Focus on the fact that there's a zero possibility that at 3 a.m, Wisconsin could get 160,000 votes all going one way. It's an absolute impossibility. Take that out of the equation. That's just the reality. So to Men's point, we actually have evidence in front of our eyes. We know they lied.
I didn't say that was Trump who said that they have the Kraken, but there was just all this that was said that, we're going to lock her up. We're going to all that other stuff. The Kraken, the files are going to fall, the pedophiles, all of it turned out to be a giant nothing. And I hope they are not doing the same thing. As Golan mentioned the other day, I think it was Golan who said it, talk less and then just present what you got.
Agreed.
Don't do as much of that, the pre-stuff.
It's over-promising and under-delivering is the thing we want to avoid. And I think that up until now, it's been a real problem, particularly within this administration, which is unusual. I feel like every time someone has made a comment, whether it's about Epstein or anything else, it feels like they're also saying, and therefore we are going to, and then they make a statement about what the future, not goal, but what the future outcome is going to be, which is unknowable in a lot of ways, especially in a political environment as polarized as ours is. So when you do that and then you don't deliver exactly what you have now prognosticated, it makes you look like you didn't deliver something. It doesn't make it look like the system got me, the deep state got me. It looks like you either lied or you overpromised or you're full of bluster. And how easy would it be to not say anything, to say, we're starting an investigation, we'll let you know what's coming. And then when the time comes, you go, here's what we got. Or not even say you started an investigation. Because then if you found nothing, you got to come out and be like, we failed. Just don't say a thing. Do your internal thing. Wait until you have something worth delivering to the American public. And then say, guess what, everybody? We've got a smoking gun. Obama did a thing. Great. Then we all go crazy. But now talking about Obama, like what he did today and talking about the Supreme Court's immunity ruling, there's two things. One, it's him mitigating what might happen in the future. Okay, that's smart, although he wouldn't have had to do it if they weren't talking about lock him up, lock him up. I also like that it kind of makes him feel magnanimous. It was like he made this generous point today where he's like, look, I recognize that there are problems, but if you're being president means making tough calls in real time, we have incomplete information. If the standard applies to me, it's got to apply to him too. That's like, it's almost like extending an olive branch, even though we know that's not exactly what it is, but it feels that way. So I like that he did that, but I kind of wish they could just keep their mouths shut and just keep their head down and do their jobs.
I want to say something, and I got to get into this, and it's like really amazing if you go to CNN Digital, the way they twist up stories. It's one of the most fascinating things to watch. I don't want to read any of these stories, but just their clickbait. And here's the analysis. Epstein fallout buries Trump's inaction on Gaza crisis. I don't even know what the hell that means. Like, I don't even know what the hell that title could mean, man. And yeah, go ahead.
It's nuts. CNN's not the only one, obviously. The BBC is running with a story now where they have a child that has some sort of degenerative disease, and he looks like he's got a skeleton body being held by an obese mom. And his brothers, and in the second picture, there's another picture with his brother, and the brother's fine.
The brother's fine. He's right. Yeah, the one where he's on the side, laying next to him. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Right there, right next to him, and the brother's fine. And they're saying that somehow this is a famine bullshit thing that they're running with. So lest we forget that CNN,
Gaza has so many relatives marrying and bearing children with each other that there's so many deformities and so many degenerative diseases. The people that we're seeing, the babies, it's always babies. There's no adults they're all fat, but the babies that look like they're starving, you can tell they're all scoliosis out. They have other issues, and as Men pointed out, the other people in the pictures with them are not starving. So At a certain point, it's silly. And by the way, speaking of CNN Digital and that particular starvation hoax, the headline right now on CNN Digital: Gaza truce talks in limbo as starvation crisis deepens, as if Hamas throwing basically roadblocks up to block any truce talks that's on Hamas, that's on the Palestinians, has anything to do with this fake starvation crisis.
You know what's amazing is because you live in Barcelona, your CNN digital headline is very different than United States CNN digital
I didn't think
headline.
about that.
And so this was Trump says he hasn't thought about giving Epstein associate a pardon.
Oh, that's on the side on mine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the top when it pops up on mine.
The reason for that is because this is what's going to enrage their readers. The people in Europe care less about Epstein, but in America, that's what's getting everyone's panties in a bunch. But everywhere else, they're going to talk about Gaza starvation. And so here in Europe, where everybody is trying to give Palestine a state while they take billions from Qatar, they're going to make sure that starvation is the headline. Over there in the States, when the MAGA people are saying, I don't trust Trump if he doesn't give me, Matt Damon on a platter or whatever ridiculous thing they're looking for, it's going to be Epstein as the headline. So yes, it absolutely makes sense that this is how they're doing it. It's just about rage clicking.
So well said. And men, today, Trump just announced that he will release people's names in the Epstein files. He went further, saying Bill Clinton has been there on Epstein Island 28 times. He named Larry Summers. So he just started releasing names by himself of who's on that list. And he said, I've never been on the island.
And that's a key point right there, that he's not been to that island. I mean, that would be a major point. The names on a list, and this is where it gets weird, because what list? What are we talking about? Are we talking about a list of pedophiles? Are we talking about a list of people that were mentioned in a defamation case or some sort of criminal case against Epstein? And these people are just people that have happened to meet him, like Golan pointed out the other day, Leo DiCaprio was mentioned in one of the depositions. Does that mean he was a pedophile, or does that mean that a lawyer asked, have you ever met Leo DiCaprio? And the name is now in the list. So it's really important to define what it is we're talking about. I want the pedophiles. I want the criminals to be released, the names of those people. I don't care if there was somebody that happened to represent them, like Alan Dershowitz represented him as his lawyer. That's immaterial. Has nothing to do with the pedophile list. We want the pedophile list. We want to know who committed the crimes. So sure, go ahead and release that stuff.
It's also important to note, he didn't say, I'm giving you the list. He said a list. I'll give you a list, he said. And it was a little flippant. And he basically is saying, I'll give you a list of people who went to the island, or I'll give you a list of people who we know are associates. But we're in that same boat you're talking about, man, where who knows in what capacity, who knows what the relationship was, who knows whether, I'll give you an example, whether you agree or believe or whatever. Bill Gates claims, I was trying to do business with him. Ultimately, it didn't work out. And so in the end, we stopped talking to each other. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But if that is true, then he would be on a list of people who traveled on the plane and hung out with him and met with him 1,000 times because he was trying to close a deal. Again, I don't know if it's true or not, but that's the dilemma, is that anybody that's mentioned right now could be on any number of connective, like the Homeland thing where the strings are going everywhere. We don't know in what capacity. And I think this is a mistake on Trump's part, because this feels a little petty, especially because of the names he's throwing out, a little partisan potentially. It undermines the seriousness of the issue. I don't think he should be getting involved. I think the more he gets involved, the worse it becomes. I think the people whose job it is to do this, the Bondis and Bonginos and the Patels and all of them, they should be talking about it. And he should continue saying, I actually have nothing to do with this story, but the Department of Justice and everyone else is doing their jobs, and we'll get you information as soon as we have some.
Right. That is the way he should be dealing with it. What he should be doing is saying, listen, I've instructed them to try to find any criminality and expose it. And exactly. That's all I have to say about this right now. Moving on. And then, what they have and what they could release needs to be pretty transparent, saying, look, we've gone through the flight records. Here are all the names of the people that have been to the island. We've looked for the videos. Some videos have people on it. Some videos have nothing on it. Just be transparent with that process and bring the nation along with you as you go through this discovery process. If you do it that way, nobody's going to hold you accountable if there is nothing there. But if you don't, and it feels like you're just being dismissive, saying there's no list, or there's nothing here, or it turned out to be nothing, it seems disingenuous and people get upset with that. So there is a bright.
By the way, I want to say one other thing. One other thing that I want our audience to know. I think this is just information for the audience. So we keep saying Epstein Island, okay? And this is, of course, the press also says Epstein Island all the time. The name of the island isn't Epstein Island. The name of the island is Little St. James. Little St. James is an island that isn't just about raping little girls, all right? It actually was a business networking, high-level socializing island. He had scientists and politicians and academics and tech leaders and business figures coming to the island for legitimate things that, and this is documented, this is not my opinion, that weren't aware of any criminal activity, that weren't involved with any criminal activity. A lot of these trips were professional. He also had social trips where he had people come and do big, rich people dinner stuff. There was philanthropy happening there. There was science research happening there. So the compartmentalization of it is important because you're going to see things that say this guy flew to Epstein Island 20 times. But if you take a step back and you say this scientist went to the research facility at Little St. James 20 times, it changes the narrative. That's not how anyone is doing it. So we also have to be careful of how we are absorbing the information because people now want the outrage. And so they make sure the language they use is going to keep us at a low boil the entire time. We have to be able to discern the difference.
And just to finish this up, everybody knows this is one of my least favorite things to talk about, but Trump brought it up today. And it's also important to note that yesterday it was either Epstein's lawyer or Maxwell's lawyer. I think it was Maxwell's lawyer from 2009 said when they were doing depositions, Trump was the only person that answered every question. It wasn't anything accusing Trump. He was just in that circle. And it's also important to note that that Trump and Epstein stopped being associates in 2004, well before any of these legal cases came to light.
Publicly, very publicly.
Yeah. So that is extremely important. And it's also extremely important to remember that for the past 4 years, Democrats could have released this list. At the same time, Democrats, for all we know, could have been adding to the file, minusing from the file, just like they created this collusion hoax that easily. All a file needs is some schmuck to put a few names on that list. And there you go. So this has to be done, as men brought up, extremely secretively, but at the same time, transparently.
Yeah. So what we're going to say is, yes, the Democrats had these files for the last 4 years. So any Democrat that's up there now, and they're all up there now, Ilhan Omar and all of them saying Trump, 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 Epstein, 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 they had the files for 4 years. So they really don't have a leg to stand on when they talk about this Epstein thing at all. And as far as the list itself goes, like we said before, they should, one is get their messaging together, but two is go after the people that committed crimes. If there are people who committed crimes, hold them accountable.
Well said. And Golan, listen, there's certain things we never discuss. We discuss certain parts of our politics. There's certain things we never really get into as far as abortion and social issues, because most of us are, I don't want to ask, and it doesn't really matter. But California just had to shut down 5 Planned Parenthood centers in California because of the big, beautiful bill. And here's what I want to say about that. Great. Absolutely great. This has nothing to do with my position on abortion or being pro-life or pro-choice. I am pro-life, but I have no problem saying that. But the depravity of these organizations coming out and saying, the pill is as safe as Tylenol. And as we know, selling off parts like James O'Keefe, showed in his videos. This is not a good organization. Something can be done better. Children should not be encouraged to go into facilities and have harmful procedures, whether that be trans stuff or anything like this, without parental guidance and without parental knowledge. And that's just my humble opinion on this.
I would love to ask you a question about it, Judah, because you're so open about it. Beyond your personal politics, why do you think this is a good thing? You said good. I want to understand. Beyond that, is there something beyond your own personal feelings that makes you feel like this is a good thing?
Yeah, I don't trust them. I don't think, there's something about abortion that people forget that I know the left loves to celebrate. And I think this is really when they broke the strand, we always had the sort of don't ask, don't tell. But when Trump came in, it was like, let's not just talk about abortion, let's celebrate abortion. But nobody ever brings up the pain and suffering that it happens to the person that had to have this procedure, whether that's a person that had a miscarriage and needed it done, or somebody that decided to use this as contraception. It leaves an indelible mark on your soul when you kill something. And it is something. I mean, we forget that it is something. A fetus is something.
Right. We talk about these things in such abstract terms, or we try to, because we're trying to dehumanize in order to not feel what we feel. And I know many people who have gone through this procedure. There's one person in particular I'm thinking of. I won't name her, of course, but we were friends for a very, very long time. She had a very bad situation and opted to do it. And she felt it was going to be very easy. She felt it was going to be something that she would be able to, walk it off coach kind of thing. And it has stuck with her ever since. She later then got pregnant again. And even though she was in another bad position, she couldn't do it again because the other baby, let's just say that, the other baby stayed with her for such a long time that she knew she could never go through that feeling again. And I think that people forget that. I think that your assessment that it's hard to trust people. Look, the James O'Keefe expose was a major thing for me. I think again, we don't have to get into the politics of all of it, but I think that the idea that federal money isn't flowing to abortion clinics just feels like it's the right choice. There are ways for things like this to work. If you feel like this is the only way you can go through it, there are nonprofits. There are private donations. If we must have this, then let it be something that is done in that way. But I don't think every person, including the people who are against it, need to be paying for it.
And let me get to one more thing about this before I get to Mend on this is, listen, I'm not referring to cases of rape, abortion, mother's life on the line, incest, anything like that. Of course, God forbid that happens. And I wrote an article for the American Spectator years ago that got picked up by Real Clear Politics. It's like, and I remember thinking to myself, of all the pieces to get picked up, this is the one. And and you don't really name your article when you write it. And it was when Hillary Clinton was debating Trump, and I had written this piece, and they called it like something like partial birth abortion is murder. And I had written where I was pro it for the first 3 months, and after that I was against it. And so I got killed from both sides on a piece I wrote. I mean, it was like I was like, what the hell just happened? But I want to say even my views since then have changed, which is okay for your views to change. Trump's views have changed. Many people's views have changed with science. This has nothing to do with God for me. As I've discussed this on The World According to Ben Stein, this has nothing to do with God. This has to do when they love to talk about science, there will come a point where if a woman is in a car accident and she's 3 months pregnant, they will be able to save that child. We are getting to those places.
And if you kill a pregnant woman who has a baby in the early stages, it's still a double homicide. I mean, these are things that
they've changed
in some
the
states,
law.
Correct. That's true. But sorry, Mend, I'll let you go. Just one second. I just want to say one thing.
I think Mend is happy we're talking about this, not him.
I just want to say this. There was a moment for me where things started to shift. I'm not in the same boat you're in, Judah, all the way to that side. I liked Clinton's version of safe, legal, and rare, and we kind of keep it under the radar. People need to do what they need to do. They do it, and that's that. The moment that it changed for me was I watched a YouTube video where someone was throwing an abortion party, and they had a cake that said, it's a boy, and they had crossed out part of boy and written abortion. And they were letting out balloons and partying. And at first I thought, oh, this is like a grieving party. And no, I realized this was a new trend. Celebrating, shouting your abortion, enjoying the fact that you are using this as contraception, being happy that you got to kill the baby inside of you and all of that. And it was so vile to me that something inside of me shifted. I couldn't unsee it after that, and that it became evil in my mind. It was the first time in my life I had ever thought that. And from that point forward, it's been way more complicated for me.
Mend?
Yeah. So the abortion thing, one is I'd like to say that I am open. I'm for it. I am pro having abortion facilities. There are cases where it is necessary, rape, incest, all that stuff for sure. And, in some cases, some kids that don't know any better fool around. They're too young. They're too young to be parents. And that is the best course of action in under the circumstances. So it should not be used as a contraceptive, which is what it is being used as a lot of the time. It's also worth noting that Planned Parenthood was started by Margaret Sanger. She wanted to cull the Black population, and she thought the best way to do that is by murdering their babies. So this did not start out as an altruistic, great organization. And it's really funny to see the Democrats and the Black progressives all pro-Planned Parenthood. And the other problems with Planned Parenthood.
Don't forget, by the way, she traveled through Germany, a very Hitler-esque model. There's a lot to that Sanger thing.
Yeah. And then there's the other things that they do, which is all the trans stuff that with kids and the money laundering they do for the Democratic Party. I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff going through that nonprofit. So I am happy that they cut off their funding. They should not be getting tax dollars, but they also provide a vital service in certain areas. And I think that you need to have something else pick up the slack. Maybe hospitals should be providing those abortions when they're needed, and you don't have to go through this weird clinic called Planned Parenthood.
I think that's well said. And Golan, let me just say one more thing about this, since you asked me, and I'm not used to being asked questions on this. I hope I answered it well. But it's also when the mother's life is in danger. And that's the most important thing. I'm not kidding. I can tell you this story. I grew up in a street in Brooklyn where I want to say a woman, and men knows the family, they had 16 kids. And she was pregnant for the 17th time. The doctor said, if you have this child, it'll kill you. She chose to keep the child, and she died. And so did the child. And 16 children were left without a mother. So I take that very seriously, that if the mother's life is on the line, especially with depression, with suicide, so in those cases, but again, this is about federal funding. This is a serious subject that we've never had a real heart-to-heart about.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing. I think men brought up something that's really important that I think people don't realize. That you hear Planned Parenthood, you just think abortion. And the other things, the other non-abortion services that they provide or that they purport to provide are actually really important, and I think could be federally funded, because some of those things are actually great for an underserved community or people who can't afford, for instance, contraception or STD testing or cancer screening, things like that. The things that are being done, or even pregnancy services for people who want to go through and have the baby but don't have health insurance or can't afford to go through that process because it can be quite costly in some cases.
Let me step in there for a second, because I want to tell you something interesting about that. That's a very big misnomer. First of all, if you can't afford contraception, you shouldn't be having sex, okay? But I was really curious about this one time. Let's just say I might have known somebody and they were complaining about the insurance company with contraception. And I said, how much is it? And I thought it was going to be like $350 a month to get at the pharmacy. And she said to me, it's $35. And that's when I said to her, if you can't afford $35 a month for contraception, and this is, again, the priorities, what Trump was talking about whenever he said, you don't need 10 of everything. You don't need this of everything. It's like we live in a country where we've lost our priorities. Everybody, look, we live in Los Angeles with $100,000 millionaires, people that drive $100,000 cars and live in apartments because that's where their priorities are. You know what? Sometimes your priorities have to be yourself, and we can't.
But I'm going to push back a little bit, because first of all, there's a human condition where I know that some people don't feel this way. I certainly do. Sex drive is a thing. The need to connect in that way. I don't think we should tell people, oh, you don't have enough money, so you can't do that. To me, that's not realistic. But I do think that there are people who recognize, like men said, or like you said, they can't afford to have a baby, they're too young or whatever it is, and maybe some of them shouldn't be having sex. That's a separate conversation. But if they're going to do the responsible thing, but if you're going to, for instance, get an IUD, that could be up to $1,300 up front. And I know friends who have just gone through this, who they're getting implants. They can't do pills because it screws up their chemical, their hormones. And so they can't do the easy $50 a month pill thing. They have to do a birth control patch for $200 or a Nuva ring for $2,400 a year. So there are people who I think this could help. And beyond all of that, forget the contraception then. Talk about cancer screening, talk about STD screening, talk about people who want to go through
100%.
pregnancy, adoption, all of these things that are also done under the banner of Planned Parenthood can be financed through the federal government in a way that I would be totally okay with. And separating those two things out actually would make the organization more legitimate, would make the organization less partisan, and would make it something that everyone would support.
I think what you're bringing up is extremely important, man. The thing that you're both talking about is what we've witnessed this week with, obviously, what we've witnessed for a long time with Planned Parenthood, but at the same time, what we've witnessed with the teachers union. Now, at the same time, these two things are so interconnected because we're saying, obviously, children need to be taught, and obviously there should be a safe place for people to get testing and screenings and everything they need that can't afford to go and do these things. The public school system is free, right? Except for your property taxes. So we have to disband places like Planned Parenthood the same way we have to disband the teachers union and start from scratch, because this model, Mend, is simply not just broken, but it's wicked.
It's been corrupted. And that's where it falls down. If you look at almost any one of these NGOs that get government funds, they've all been corrupted. And that's why I'm against giving out federal tax dollars or our tax dollars to any foreign country or any domestic NGOs. I don't think we should be doing that. I think what we should be doing is you allow Americans with their giant hearts to give charity voluntarily. You could give to whoever you want. It's a tax deduction. It's a write-off. But the government should not be doing this, because we've seen where they spend that money. You're talking about $1 billion went to some organization run by Stacey Abrams to change people's stoves in their houses in Atlanta. It was the biggest wasteful thing ever. This NGO that she had that had $100 in the bank got over $1 billion from the federal government. What'd they do with that money? That's our tax dollars. I don't agree with that. So while I agree with Golan that there should be some federal programs that subsidize contraceptives, where anyone who is of age and is whatever having relations, kids that are having sex, should be able to go to a pharmacy and get a contraceptive. If they're underage, they need their parents' permission or whatever, but that should be there. Planned Parenthood has been totally corrupted, and they're using our money, our tax dollars, for things that have nothing to do with, one is contraception, but two is it doesn't align with our ideology. So you're taking money from people like me and you're using it against me with these organizations, and that's absolutely unacceptable. So,
and by the way, it's absolutely, like, if you look within the Department of Education, you're seeing exactly that. Think about, if you look at just the staff, right, the contributions tied to the Department of Education employees, over 70% go to Democratic candidates. And that doesn't mean that 30% go to Republican candidates, because 15 or 16% went to Republican candidates, and then it was spread elsewhere. So you have a real ideological bent happening in places like that. And I think the idea of closing the Department of Education specifically, I know you're talking about all the NGOs. I'm all for closing all of them, by the way. Let's watch Human Rights Watch and the Red Cross and all of these other supposedly benevolent organizations burn to the ground, because they're all ideologically captured and they're all corrupt. But I think the U.S. Department of Education, since we're talking about the failure of our children and the failure to protect our kids from ideological capture, is exactly why. Look no further than what's happening right now. They are pro-Hamas. They're teaching our kids to sympathize with terrorists in the classroom. The classrooms are actually, I'm going to use this word, being hijacked by activist unions, and they're just parroting Hamas propaganda. Department doesn't say a word. Department is supporting it. We're seeing it all the time.
What did they do yesterday? I mean, just yesterday it came out that the teachers
2 days ago,
biggest teachers union in the country removed Jews from the term Jews from all of their discussions about the Holocaust. They're just saying 12 million people died of different faiths. Like
we talked about this yesterday.
Yeah. They represent 3,000, just so you know, they represent 3,000 public schools. 3,000 public schools. So you make a great point.
And it's not a minor thing, by the way. It's not something that can be reformed. This needs to be dismantled, because once you get to a point where the system starts treating terrorists like freedom fighters and parents like they are the domestic threats, you've gone beyond the pale. You're past the Rubicon. So it's time to shut it down. I don't trust our kids with that system at all. And if we're going to rescue education from the grip of that radical ideology, it is the only way to do it.
Okay. On that note, I just want to say something to our listeners. Obviously, this is a very difficult conversation we just had, and I respect everything Golan said. I respect everything the dude said. And the whole point in this show is really obviously avoiding the rumors in the news, but it's also to be able to have a conversation on extremely hard topics. And I hope that's what people come away from this with. I know I'm going to get a lot less dates if any women in LA listen to this show. That I will for sure go dateless for the rest of my life. But if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. But the point is, have these discussions, and the Republican Party would be far better off if we actually had discussions like this. And I'm tired of people saying men shouldn't have these conversations. We're the ones that should be having these conversations, okay? And I hate that argument when people say women should only be having these conversations, so only about the women. No, men have a lot to do with it, since obviously they're a big part of it too. And it's another thing of the feminist movement to erase men out of society and our voices out of society and emasculate us and go on. That's my final thoughts on that. The weekend's coming up. I love hearing what you guys are going to do. What do you got planned? Go on.
Hey, I've just gotten over a series of illnesses, as some of you might know, and I'm finally feeling a little better. You can probably still hear I'm not completely there yet, but I've decided tomorrow I'm going back into nature to get a little air. I'm going to brave the wilds once again, hopefully no spiders this time. My plan is tomorrow morning, get in the car, pile the kids into it, head out to my house in the country. We have a nice pool there. Get in the pool, stay in the pool.
Are you going to eat a lot of peaches?
Is this? Are you doing the President of the United States of America right now?
Yeah.
Well done. Little music reference. You always got to do one per week. Love that song, by the way. But we're going to get in the pool. We're not going to get out of the pool except to barbecue. Then we're going to get back in the pool. We're going to do that for 2 days. We're going to drive back home, and hopefully I'll be refreshed.
Just so you know, Mend and I have actually pulled our resources together. It hasn't gotten to you yet, but we are getting you a hazmat suit. Mend, what do you have planned for the weekend?
Oh, we got lots going on. Lots of beach bike riding, hitting the sand, tennis. We've got a whole bunch of things lined up.
I love that. Makes me jealous and
makes me tired to hear what you're going to do, man.
Right, men's weekends are never relaxing. They're like a lower form of a workout from the gym.
I love it. Dragging the dog down to the beach with the kids and all their stuff in a trailer and pulling it. And it's just being out and seeing, by the way, get outside, seeing how many people are out, which I love about this town that we're in. You go down to the beach and there's nothing but, as far as the eye can see, of people having fun on the beach, barbecuing and dancing and music and playing frisbee and volleyball, all of it. It reminds you that this little chamber that we're in, where we're all online all day and everybody's just screaming at each other on X, is not the real world. There's so much going on. So getting out is really important for all of us.
And you, Judah, what's your plan for the weekend? We didn't get that.
The Judah never has
Tinder.
The Judah never
on Tinder.
You're swiping on the Tinder. I told you I got banned from Tinder, Hinge, and every app. No, I'll be with
Grindr.
Ben Stein.
I'll be swiping on Grindr.
No, I'll be hanging with Ben Stein at the Bev Hills Hotel, picturing away and truthing away and having some fun conversations with my one of my BFFs. And that's really the plan. And yes, maybe I'll get a date. The odds are 99% not. So
and certainly after today's show.
Yeah, certainly after today's show. You know what, Golan? I'll just end with this. I don't care. And as I keep on saying, if I wanted to be popular, I wouldn't have chosen conservatism. And you know what? That's my tagline in life. You got to be honest to thy own self, be true. And who knows, one day maybe my points of view will change, but that's where I am today. But at the same time, I do respect many other views. Okay, guys, any final thoughts? Are we good?
I think we're good.
Everybody have a great weekend. As Men said, get outside, smile. Don't read the news for the weekend. Just put the phone down, get away from technology. That's really my suggestion.
Except listen to our show and share it. Okay, on that note.
Oh, wait, there is one other thing. My wife said I have to say this, because we don't have enough reviews. So people are listening like crazy. We've hit numbers that we never hit before, which is awesome. Numbers that we're right behind CNN and Sky News, and they've got way more advertising because we've got zero advertising. But we don't have enough ratings. So right now, go to Spotify, go to Apple, go to YouTube, go to like the stuff and rate us 5 stars, write a comment, review and share, all of those things. We just haven't been saying the rating and the liking part. Please do that too. It helps us, helps the algorithm, gets our voice out to other people.
Well said. And remember, everybody, you can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Substack at The Daily Cheat Sheet, YouTube at The Daily Cheat Sheet, X at TD Cheat Sheet, Truth. You could find us at The Daily Cheat Sheet. Also, you could find Golan there, Golan Ramraz, and you can find me at Judah Friedman. I want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are, and God bless you all.